So today I really wanted to do a book recommendation video, but I was struggling to come up with a theme. I thought about maybe doing like cozy books for Thanksgiving since the holiday is right around the corner for us Americans, but I couldn't think of enough cozy books for that, and I felt like the recommendations were going to be really obvious. So I was like, what do I do for book recommendations? And then I remembered I have a bookish board game, and you all seem to be loving videos involving this board game, so why not make bookish recommendations based on these prompts? So that is what we're doing today. I'm going to be rolling the dice 10 different times to give you all 10 different recommendations based on the random prompts that this board game lands on. Without further ado, let's get started. I'm gonna have you all down here so you can see that I'm not cheating. 10. Oh, sorry, my dog's coming over. BB, stop. Good girl. Okay, let's restart that. I thought she was gonna knock over my whole setup. Longest title. Okay, so a book that has a really long title that I would recommend. I have to look. This is such a basic answer because I've given this answer so many times, but my favorite book of the year is Last One at the Party by Bethany Clift. This is my favorite book of the year. I'm pretty certain, unless there's some amazing book that comes up in December, this is probably my favorite book of the year. And I have read almost 150 books this year. So that says a lot. This is about a woman who is going through a pandemic after COVID that leaves her the last woman on Earth. The pandemic is known as 6DM, which I think stands for 6 days maximum. Within 6 days of getting the illness, the person dies, but she never gets the illness. And it goes through her experience being the last person on Earth and how she survives that, how she gets through that. And it is just such a beautiful book. Like, first of all, it is gruesome. It is hard to read. She faces things that are unimaginable. Sorry about that. BB just knocked over my entire setup. Anyways, it's gruesome. It's hard to read. It's unforgettable. The character goes through so much self-discovery, and like, how do you experience the world without other people around? That is what this book tackles, and having to rely on yourself and having to find joy and survival within yourself. I'm obsessed with it. I need to read her other book. She only has 2 books. I think this was her debut novel, if I'm not mistaken. I love this book, and it has kind of a long title, long enough for me to recommend it. So that's my recommendation for longest title. I could go on about that book all day long. 11. Released this year. Oh my gosh, there have been so many good books released this year. Happy Place by Emily Henry. How could I not recommend this book? This is the only Emily Henry that I have read so far. I know. Blasphemy. Shame on me. I know. I need to read her other books. I definitely want to read her backlog in the upcoming year, but I seriously loved this book. I think it is such an important story about friendship and loss and grieving, but not necessarily grieving like people, but grieving relationships and the past and what was and what could have been. And it's just wonderful. I personally see it more as like an adult lit, and I'm not typically an adult lit person, but this is one of those books that I just love regardless. So definitely cannot recommend this enough. I feel like now I'm gonna land on Pink Book and Dystopian or something. I'm gonna be like, dang it, I should have picked those. 7. What does this say? Over 400 pages. Okay, so a longer book. I've read quite a few long books this year. I love this book. I love the sequel. I need to read the rest of the series in the upcoming year. Binding 13. I was so surprised that I loved this book. I went into this book so intimidated by the page count. I think it's almost 600 pages. Writing is really, really tiny, but when I tell you this book is absolutely 5 stars. And I think I gave the second one like 4 or a little bit over 4 stars. Still loved it though. Oh my gosh, one of the characters in this book is getting his own book in April, Gibbsy. He was my favorite character, so I cannot wait for his book to come out. I need to read Saving and Redeeming 6. Oh, gosh, I have to read those before April. Oh my god, I just realized I have to read those before April. Holy crap. I have a lot of work to get done, but I seriously love this book. Cannot recommend it enough. This is so fun. This is just an excuse to talk about my favorite books, which, like, who wouldn't love that, you know? Making sure you could see him. 6. Ooh, a fantasy recommendation. I was actually thinking of this before I picked up the camera. Give me one moment. This is a book that I don't talk about very often on this channel just because I don't typically have reasons to bring it up, but I love this book. Amari and the Night Brothers. This is a series, actually. I think the second one came out last year, and then the third one came out pretty recently. I gave this 5 stars. I read it in less than 24 hours. That is how much I loved it. And the best way I can describe this is that it's similar to Harry Potter, but a better version of Harry Potter. Amari's wonderful. I love the side characters in this. I love our main character. I was tearing up at one point during this book. I just seriously thought it was amazing, and I recommend it. And I can't wait to continue the series. That's yet another thing I need to do in the new year. Oh my gosh. Next month, I want to make a video talking about my bookish goals for the new year. And this video is really helping with that because I'm realizing I have a lot of goals next year. And now I feel like I could just pick out my TBR for all of next year in January if I wanted to, with the amount of books that I'm like, I need to read these in the new year. Oh, is that actually going to happen? Am I actually going to read all these books in the new year? Anyways, let's continue. Sorry, it's kind of hard to see him. I'll just hold this for the meantime. 12. Oh my gosh. Okay. Male POV. A book with a male POV that I recommend. Y'all already know this is one of my favorite horror books. Stolen Tongues by Felix Blackwell. I read this years ago and was in love with it. At the time, I think I read it within a few days, and I wasn't super big on reading at the time. Like, I've always been a reader, but I wasn't reading the way that I read nowadays, you know? So the fact that I finished it in only a couple of days at that time tells you how much I loved it. This is about skinwalkers, and they basically, this couple who, this is written based on the male in the couple's POV. It's a man and his fiance. They travel to a cabin in the middle of the woods, and they end up experiencing the terrifying haunting of skinwalkers, and the fiance starts acting really weird, and it's crazy. Like, it's dark, and it's allegedly based on a true story. I don't know how much I really believe that, but it's kind of a fun little thing to think about. 4. A white cover. Again, this is just an excuse to talk about my favorite books. The Addicted series. All of these covers are white with different things on the front. Like this one has the broken heart. I didn't necessarily love the first book in this series, but got a little overenthusiastic there. Stick with the series. That is my advice. If you read the first one and you're not a big fan of it, like I think I gave the first one 3 or 3.5 stars, and something told me just stick with it. Something told me, I think it was the fact that I was falling in love with one of the side characters, but I was like, just stick with the story because I feel like you're gonna like it. And sure enough, I have fallen head over heels in love with this series. I need to finish it. I am on the 7th book, I think, in the series, and I love it. Found family trope. The main characters are 2 addicts who fall in love. They're childhood friends to lovers. And then there's other side characters that get their own books that have interesting love stories as well. I am obsessed with Reich, who is one of the side characters. Read this series. Read this series, please read this series. Oh my gosh. 3, a Black author. Okay, we got a lot of options. I don't know what to pick. I do know what to pick. One of my favorite thrillers, Ace of Spades. This is so fun. It is a mix of Get Out, Pretty Little Liars, and Gossip Girl. Do I need to say more? Like, is there anything else I can say to convince you to read this book? I shouldn't have to say anything else. That should be enough for you to want to pick up this book, okay? 7. 1, 2, we're gonna skip over this part because there's not actually a prompt on there. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A manga or graphic novel. Ooh, I love this. Okay. I know I'm basic. I don't care. Death Note. I read this series. I technically reread it because I read it in high school, but I read this series for the first time in an extremely long time this year. Obsessed. Obsessed. The month that I read this, I ditched my entire TBR for the month and just started binging these. And I think I finished all 6 of the Black Edition books, which is the entire manga, in like 2 weeks or something ridiculous. Definitely recommend. I gave all of these really close to 5 stars. Some of them I gave 5 stars. Some of them I gave like 4.5. I think one of them I gave 4 stars. That was like the lowest rating I gave out. Seriously, like these are so good. And I know that this is the most basic answer ever. I don't care. Give it a shot. It's so fun. And especially if you're in a reading slump, I definitely recommend this. I think I was like on the verge of a reading slump when I picked these up, and I had a good old time. All right. I had a good old time with this. How many books do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 more prompts left so that this video is not forever long, but I could seriously do this all day. 8. A romance. Oh my gosh, I love romance. There's too many to pick from. Give me a second. I'm actually gonna go with a book that I recently read, The Deal by Elle Kennedy. This is one of those OG book talk books that everybody and their mother knows about. When I tell you that I flew through this book, when I would pick it up to read it, I couldn't put it down. I was staying up late. I was putting off chores. Like, I'm telling you, flew through this book. Absolute 5 stars. I read it during a time where I was having a really difficult time, some personal stuff going on, as you guys I've hinted at throughout other videos, but I have had some really intense personal stuff going on. I feel comfortable sharing now, so I guess I'll clue y'all in. My grandfather passed away. He was going through some health issues, and it was really hard, and then he did ultimately pass. I was able to see him for a really brief time before he passed, which I'm very thankful for, but it has been so incredibly hard. I have been grieving like crazy. But I can't believe I'm getting emotional about a freaking smut book. Relax, Amanda. Oh my God. Books like this, it's just a silly little smut. You know what I mean? It's just a silly little smut book. But being able to escape into a world that is different from your own when you're going through a hard time is one of the many reasons why I love reading. And I think reading is so important, is because it's seriously helped me so much to be able to just read a silly little stupid book. Grief is crazy. I've been having a very difficult time, but being able to escape into books has been very therapeutic. So I had to give that one to the deal because I'm very thankful for what it has been able to do for me recently, which is escape my sad brain. One last recommendation, though that would have been a good note to end on. 5. Sci-fi / dystopian. Dang it! I should have given that one to the last one at the party. Okay. I'm gonna pick one that I didn't give 5 stars to. However, I still think you might. The End of Men. This is about a pandemic. Can you tell I like dystopian novels about pandemics? I don't really know why that is, but apparently that's something I like. I don't know. This is a book about a pandemic that eradicates men from the earth. Not all men pass, but a good majority of them do. I'm talking like 90% or more. And this book deals with that happening and the effects that it has on the planet, the effects that it has on different countries, how patriarchy shifts a lot without men being present to be able to do that. It's a lot. It's very good though. It's very interesting. I was captivated the whole time I was reading it, though it is a little long. I will say it's a little long, but I still really enjoyed it. The only reason that I did not end up giving it 5 stars, I think I gave it like closer to 4, is because I graduated with a degree in sociology. So a lot of the things that were discussed in this book were things that didn't really take me by surprise. And that's more of a personal problem because of my background. I just happen to know a lot about sociology and kind of being able to predict a lot of this book as a result of my education. However, I think that's a very unique circumstance that I happen to fall into. I don't think a majority of people would have that problem. I think most people would be able to read this and be shocked by it and each page be like fascinated by, you know? Like, I think that this would be a really interesting book for someone who doesn't have the education background that I do, but because of my education background, I was able to predict a lot of what happens in this novel. That's just a personal thing. I think you might give it 5 stars if you're not someone who graduated in sociology. All right, y'all. Those are my bookish recommendations based on my bookish board game. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. This was such a fun excuse to talk about some of my favorite books. If you enjoyed this video, you'll probably enjoy my other content, so you should stick around. We would love to have you. And until next time, bye!